The header is good, and it's the giant defender John Taylor, and eventually Korea have broken the deadlock.
You're listening to the K-League United podcast, proud partner of Football Nation Radio.
Hello, annyeonghaseyo. Ryan Walters in the Kim Do-hoon bunker, as it can only be known these days. I'm joined this week, once again, I think for the first time in 2020, by Steve Price.
Yeah, how's it going? I think you're right. First time this year.
It's been way too long. We usually have Steve on for the Korean national team, and that just hasn't been a thing this year. Right. And Pete Hampshire's here again. Pete, I hear that you had a rough trip home from Korean class.
Yeah, so on my way, just on my way out, on my Gimje bicycle, I thought the mosquitoes were over now, but I just got stung by one on the way out, just in time. So I'm sorry if I keep touching my leg. It's not what it looks like in
the rough streets of Gimje.
For those watching live, it looks it's fine. At least you've explained it off the top. Speaking of off the top,
I'm not going to say why I'm rubbing my leg.
We'll just leave that one. We're just not going to touch that one. Off the top, other than rubbing legs off camera, which is definitely what's going on. Don't worry about it, folks. We do have to congratulate Jung Moo-yeol as the actual K-League survivor. The champion has been crowned. Congratulations, Moo-yeol. And it shouldn't be surprising. He wiped the floor with us in Matthew Binns' pub quiz that we did with the Patreon supporters. And you don't bet against Moo-yeol.
No, he can go for the hat trick, can't he, if he wins the belt as well?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he could get the pub quiz champ, and then he could also get the KLU championship belt. I don't remember who has it right now, though.
Wasn't it the smug man down the road in Jeonbuk?
Oh boy. Well,
I can't remember myself.
Wouldn't be him anymore because Pohong did everybody a favor over the weekend, and that is one of the many things that we'll be talking about this week. We're going to talk about Final A and Final B, because I'm not calling them Final Round A and Final Round B anymore. Not doing it. So we're going to talk about just Final A, Final B. That's what we're going to call it, and that's what it'll be. And there's a lot going on there, as always. Again, Pohong doing everybody other than Matthew Binns and Jose Moraes a favor, so I'm sure Pete's torn about how to feel about that one there.
And it was quite enjoyable at the weekend. Sat behind the dugout. It wasn't too bad.
I was actually, it was a rare public viewing for me. There was a pub in Seoul here that was completely empty other than me and the baseball Brit. We met up to watch that game, and I was shouting fits of glee. Song Min Kyu, you beautiful, beautiful man. But we'll talk about that one in a minute. But the reason that Steve's here, not aside from us just missing Steve and wanting to get him in here, right. We do have a Korean national team to talk about. Team Bento versus Team Kim Hak-bum. We could have come up with something other than that, but that's what it is. And we've got the senior national team facing the Olympic national team. So each of us is going to be going over our surprises, expectations, and we'll each name one player to watch in those squads. And of course, we got a mailbag. So any questions that you have throughout the show, go ahead and get those in on social, and we will get to them later. But gentlemen, let's go ahead and get started in Final A, where Ulsan Hyundai they just staked their claim to the title, as you do. A pair of braces in this one for Jung Sung-hyun and Bjorn Janssen. They were 4-1 victors over Sangju Sangmu. And let's just dive in here. Pete, we haven't had you on in a little bit. Or Pete, you've been on all the time. Steve, you haven't been on a little bit. So I'm going to throw you under the bus. Steve, how important is this win for Ulsan?
The last win against Sangju?
Yeah, this past weekend for Ulsan.
Right. Yeah, because they were ahead for so much of the season, and then it seems like Jeonbuk were just kind of getting back and getting rid of that lead and closing in on them. So now they've got that gap again. I think it gives them a little bit of space, but I don't know. I've always got that sneaky feeling that Jeonbuk's going to win it on the last day of the season or something.
Yeah, and Matthew Binns is watching live with us and saying that he's just going to feel even smugger when Ulsan bottle it now. But Pete, how big is it that Big Bjorn gets on the board for this one, gets a brace. I don't think we've seen him as much as certainly that he would want, maybe than any of us would have wanted. But I mean, with Junior doing the things that he's doing, it's tough to replace him up top. But how big is it to have him as another threat for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I'm sure he's been really frustrated, even though it's understandable when you're behind Junior Negrão. He could have had a hat-trick as well because he hit the post, didn't he?
Yeah.
And I thought it was interesting Kim Do-hoon played the two of them together up front only for about 25 minutes, but linked up well. So that at least he's got that versatility. That is an option that he can use, and he's not completely stubborn about it. But yeah, it's huge. It's huge because if you compare them to their direct competitors, John Book at the top, then they've clearly got better options in the striking in the front three. And if you've got someone like Johnson to come off the bench or whatever, then great strength in depth, which I don't think John Book have. And what they did have, they've sold him at left back. They're selling their strength in depth. Yeah,
that's a good point. And I think for Ulsan here, this isn't, no offense to the mighty Yellows down in Gwangju, but this is a win against Sangju Sangmu, a team that has been fantastic all year. I think the outgoing players affected the team quite a bit this year, but Sangju still absolutely no slouch. So to put 4 past them, that's pretty significant from Ulsan. And I will wait to say nice things about Ulsan because this isn't a pressure match. Beat Pohang and we'll talk. Beat Jeonbuk and we'll talk.
That Jeonbuk game's going to be a big one.
Oh, it's going to be massive. I mean, yeah, for all intent and purposes, that should be the title decider. That was the case last year as well, though. And then,
who wants to bet on a red card in the first 5 minutes?
Oh, I don't believe in betting. We all saw how things went for me in Survivor, so I don't put my money where my mouth is.
It was interesting from the Ulsan Sangju game how a lot of the goals came in like from crosses, and you're seeing the quality of Hong Chul, someone who they've signed, whereas Jeonbuk left their quality. They've let their quality left back go. So that could be where the title is decided. If you swap those 2 players around, then it's going to be that tight this season, I think.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Well, let's move on a little bit and let's get some good news in here. I mean, that's good news for Ulsan fans. Let's keep the good news going. Daegu have qualified for the Asian Champions League after their 1-0 victory over Gwangju FC. Roo Jae-moon, the hero on the day, just a 1-0 victory there. But the Hedgehogs, the Sky Blues, whatever you want to call them, we all love Daegu. They're back in international football. Pete, how big of a deal is this for this project? Because we talk about Daegu all the time on the podcast. How big of a deal is it for them?
This isn't really good news for Pete, though, is it?
Well, yeah, Pete.
That Yoo Jae-moon absolutely walked through the Gwangju defense.
Oh my goodness, didn't he? Yeah. I mean, yeah, well, that was... I used the train emoji for that one because you had to, because he wasn't making any qualms about it. He wasn't trying to be tricky or anything, just plowed right through and got the only goal of the game. But again, for Daegu here, to me, this is massive. It's a proof of concept in so many ways, because especially this year of all years, for them to go out and qualify through the league for Champions League. They did it through FA Cup the last time and didn't finish this high in the league. So to me, this is just another step forward. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're only 3 points behind Sangju in 4th as well, so they could finish 4th. I mean, for a citizen club, fantastic. And like we mention it all the time, like you said, going down, especially when the fans are there, it was fantastic in that stadium. The facilities they've got, it's just the perfect blueprint for how to do it. And I'm really pleased they made it into the Champions League, because then other clubs around Asia can see what they've done again.
Yeah, and hopefully... I mean, I expect 2021 is going to be very similar to 2020 and the way that we're all wearing masks, and AFC is already planning for this. They're already talking about next year's Champions League being in a bubble, which is a massive shame for the city of Daegu and that club to not have people coming into that stadium. But again, I think the blueprint is there for other teams to follow. And look, Gwangju is kind of picking up on that with the stadium that they've built and are continuing to build. So we'll see how this goes. By the way, your microphone's getting a lot of attention in the comments, Pete.
Oh, my little glow stick. It's a rave down in Gimje all the time. That's why.
All right. Let's shift gears here. Steve, let's talk about Pohang. Let's talk about the Pohang Steelers and Song-min Kyu, somebody that I think we're going to be talking about a lot this podcast. He got the only goal against Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors, and Pohang did absolutely everybody a favor and took down Thanos.
Right, yeah. I mean, Song-min Kyu, he's on that list of players to talk about for the national team in that match, because he's one of the players that's been brought in to Kim Hak-bum's side, who he wasn't there before, and he's doing so well this season. It's a real breakthrough season for him. I think he's joint top Korean goal scorer in the K-League, if I'm not wrong.
You are correct.
Stuff. And yeah, Pohang, they're always that team who you kind of underestimate them every season, right? Like you think you look at their squad on paper, you think they're not going to do that well. They're going to maybe be, 7th or 8th in the league, and they always surprise people, and they always seem to be up there competing for the Champions League. And I mean, again, this season.
Well, that was what I was going to ask you, is how good are Pohang this year? Because, like I said, I think the expectation wasn't necessarily that it would all click this season. I think we expected them to do well, but maybe not this well. And how much do you think Song-min Kyu is playing into that?
Yeah, like when I saw them at the start of the season, they seem to really have they have their plan, their strategy of how to break down teams, and they seem to be very good at using their wings, which a lot of teams in the K-League don't seem to know how to do properly. They seem to be able to kind of break quickly, down on those wings, and then kind of use the strength of their forwards as well to really muscle over teams and kind of take advantage of any errors that teams make, at least in the games that I saw them play. So I think they know what they want to do in each game. They've got that kind of strategy, and they're just every game they're doing it.
Yeah, and they've been fun to watch. They're scoring goals plenty. There's some fun attacking talent there. So, and this is what's interesting, talking about all of the AFC Champions League spots secure now. We'll have Jeonbuk and Ulsan. We're not sure who will go in as champion or FA Cup winner. We'll see. But either way, we know they'll be there, and they're going to automatically qualify. They don't have to worry about the playoff. And we're going to have to see Pohang and Daegu go through the playoffs this time around. So with that, we've got 3 matches left in the championship round. So, I mean, really, what is there left for these teams to play for other than ruining Jeonbuk's day?
Yeah, it's just a pride thing, isn't it? I mean, especially for Gwangju, they don't want to go all 5 games without getting 1 win. And they still haven't won at home, I don't think. So that'll be, for Gwangju perspective, that'll be what they're after, a home win, I think.
Right. They normally say at a point in the season, the players are on the beach, but I think this season they can't go to the beach, so they're going to have to put in their full effort.
I mean, they can go to the beaches in Pohang and Busan and Jeju, but they're going to be a little bit cold this time of year.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think maybe for Pohang, maybe it's a statement of intent for next year, because Pete, I know that you're really high on Pohang and what they're doing there, and you think they could challenge for the title next year.
Yeah, I'm backing them to win the league next year. If they keep
heard it here first.
Wow.
If they keep that spine, you've got Harchang-rae at the back, Ilychenko up front, and Palisevich. What a player he is. He's got a wand of a left foot, as the cliche goes, and just controls games. It was a pleasure to watch him last weekend. But yeah, I think I love going down to the Steelyard as well. What a stadium. If we can have a trip there as a group, we need to do that if we can next season.
As soon as the stadiums are open, we'll get on that again. Matthew Bin's never far from us. He is coming in the comments here and pointing out that Pohang getting Kang Sang-moo back from Sangju is massive. And once again, Kim Tae-won and what he does for players at Sangju and how much better Kang Sang-moo is this season, it's just massive. And yeah, I think he'll be really good. And Kang Hyun-moo, another player that I think we'll be talking about when we talk about the national team, having a great
brilliant
season
at the weekend.
And he was fantastic against Jeonbuk. There's a highlight reel currently out on YouTube that will be up on Twitter later. It's been a busy week of the match that he had. And yeah, I think he's also pretty fantastic this season.
Binz has just said, is it Pohang against Ulsan in the next round of fixtures as well? Which, if it is, then
it is.
Wow. Because
it is.
I went to that Pohang Ulsan game where Ulsan got the revenge, and it was so feisty. It was so good to see. So I'm hoping we could have some fireworks.
Yeah, and this is a good point while we're talking about Final A here. The next round is obviously not this weekend. It's an international break. So Pohang is going to host Ulsan on Sunday, October 18th. That'll be a 7 p.m. kickoff. And at the same time, Jeonbuk will be going up against the Mighty Yellows of Gwangju. So there you go, Pete. There's the season for Gwangju, really.
That's where Gwangju win Ulsan the title. There we go.
There are many people hoping for that. So yeah, so we'll see. And also we'll have some stuff. We've got a few special things lined up for the next East Coast Derby. So a little bit of a teaser there. We'll say Paul's busy. That's why Paul's not here right now, but he's very busy behind the scenes. So anyway, let's move on. Let's move on to what the people want to talk about. Title races are fine. Who cares though? Let's talk about Final B. Let's talk about Gangwon FC beating Songnam FC 2-1. And look, I want to talk about the goals. I want to talk about what this means for the Magpies, but we've got to start with this red card. And Steve, I'm just throwing you under the bus this episode. Welcome back.
Right.
Was this a red card for Park Soo-il?
I'm gonna channel my inner Arsene Wenger and say I didn't see the incident on this one.
Okay.
Because I actually didn't.
Oh, all right. Well, Pete, I know you were watching this one. Is this a red card for you?
Yeah, I did the highlights and I thought it was a red. Yeah. How about you? Why your voice suggests that you didn't?
Well, I think it's harsh. I think it's a yellow, certainly. He does come from behind, but it's not two-footed. The studs are kind of up, but I mean, he doesn't catch the trailing leg. Yellow, yes. I'm not gonna flip the table over because it's a red. I can see why it was, but I do think it's a little bit harsh, and that turned this game on its head. But despite that fact, Songnam did have a lead. Na Sang-ho doing his best yet again, scored in the second half, but then Gangwon came through. Well. He only scores worldies. Yeah. That's what he does. He came back
on fire, isn't he?
He came back just to get the Magpies on the highlight reel. Yeah, he looks great. And again, I think he's another player that we'll be talking about in the national team section, but he can't do it on his own. And that's what we keep saying for Songnam. And in this one, he couldn't do it on his own. He did his part, and then they weren't able to shut up shop. And I mean, this is the second week that we're talking about this with Songnam. And to me, this is an even bigger deal than Incheon, because Incheon, the floodgates were open and you know, you couldn't stop. But at some point, again, when it's 4-0, no one leaves the halfway line. You just stop conceding goals with what goals scored means here. And again, this is massive because Incheon right now, they're in contention against Songnam because of goals scored. And Incheon was shut out over the weekend. We'll talk about that shortly, but they've got 21 goals to Songnam's 20. So Songnam not shutting up shop against Gangwon, not shutting up shop for the second week in a row. This is massive. And Pete, is this enough for Gangwon to be safe on the other side of things?
Yeah, 9 points clear of the drop. I think that's it. I think that'll be ensured their safety, because teams are playing each other, and there's only so many games left. They can't all win.
Right. So let's look at the other side of this, though, Steve. How concerned should Songnam be right now?
Well, I mean, to be honest, there's 4 teams in that battle for not finishing bottom. So I'm concerned for FC Seoul, even though they're the highest out of those 4 teams. To be honest, I mean, the way they played after going 2 goals down kind of suggests they've got enough passion in them to hopefully get a result in one of those games. But yeah, it's going to be a big one, Seoul against Songnam, because they're always the games which Songnam win 1-0.
Yeah,
always.
Yeah,
one shot on goal in the whole game and win 1-0.
And you can see it happening.
I can see that happening. Yeah. I think it's Songnam's defense. Yeah, they're still pretty solid. Apart from the last few weeks, they've still got the spine of their team there. And I think if they decide to shut up shop and the other team's trying to attack, they can get a clean sheet and nick a goal. So I think they could squeeze it with the odd 1-0 here or there. That'll be enough to just get them over the line.
They're gonna have to start getting those soon. And like you said, I think Seoul might be the team that they get one against, and to move on to the other result there. Took this one in person. I couldn't resist. I knew Busan was going to do it, and I just had to see it in person. And they did. Busan came away 2-1 winners against FC Seoul. A scoreline that I think flatters Seoul. Jung Han Min, the youngster, got his second goal of the season. He didn't know much about that one. It was deflected off of his shin. Right place, right time. Sure, good on you, kid. I think he's got a good future. I like him. But Seoul, like you were saying, Steve, I think it took them getting punched in the mouth to wake up. Yeah. And I don't. What is going on with Seoul? When are they going to wake up?
I'm gonna disagree slightly, and I think like that game. I don't think when you say it flattered Seoul, I don't think that was the case. I think Seoul actually, they had a lot of the ball in the right place, and it just wasn't falling in the area. But the way they were playing, they were attacking. Apart from right in the last 10 minutes when they seemed to get stuck, they were attacking really with a lot of intent and probably deserved to score more than one goal across the course of the game. And then, the goal they let in just after half time with the free kick, there's not much you can do there. But previous Seoul performances before that game really worry me because in some of their recent performances, they've looked absolutely terrible. The one against Incheon, the goal they let in that game was schoolboy stuff. It's just the two guys running and passing in between each other. And none of the defenders decide to take responsibility for a player. Some of the goals they've let in this season have been absolutely horrendous. Nobody in that defence is taking that responsibility. And even though I thought they did okay against Busan and were unlucky in that game, I can see them returning to that Incheon style game and losing these games 1-0 through some stupid defensive error and being in real trouble.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Yoon Jung-gyu's really got to improve on that right wing. They insist on everything going through him, and it's not been there for him. And Cho Young-uk's also not really hitting his mark, but we'll talk about him shortly. We're running a little bit long here, so I'm going to move us on to Suwon. You did it. Good on you. Fine, Suwon. Suwon came away 1-0 winners. Good for them. I think that'll be enough to get them out of the relegation scrap. It should be anyway. But Incheon back down to the bottom of the table with this 1-0 loss. Pete, I don't think this isn't too crushing of a blow for Incheon, is it though? The form that Suwon's in?
It's not a nail in the coffin for them. No, I mean, they've got games against teams around them, as is the nature of Final B. So no, it's certainly not the end. Only all they need to do is get a point, and they've got more goals scored than Songnam. So certainly not. I just think they just looked a bit devoid of ideas. Aguilar didn't have his best game, even though he was on the ball a lot. He didn't show that quality that he's certainly got. Yeah. By the way, I wanted to ask a question. Is it finally decided whether Magosa is staying or leaving? He's been doing the hokey cokey, hasn't he?
The last I've heard, he is staying because of quarantine rules. And if a player is affected by that, then they don't have to go to their national team. So as far as I know, he will be there. Quote Paul on that. Paul's the newsman, not me. And actually, we've got Scott Whitelock coming in the comments here and pointing out a really good point in this match, that the man of the match was probably the pitch, that he's saying had more complete tackles than any player in the entire league. The pitch was in really rough shape. And I think playing away from home might benefit Incheon here. They only have one more home match, which is against Busan, though. So that's a massive, massive, massive game. So we'll see. Hopefully the pitch doesn't affect them that much there. And Busan's got a little bit of confidence coming in here, but Busan's by no means safe here. So we'll see how it goes. It's going to be interesting.
But with Busan, I was dipping into the Busan supporters chat on Kakao on the Korean chat app, and they were quite pleased with how, since Cho Duk-jae left, how it's been more risk and reward football, more attacking intent and giving it a bit of a go, because in the past they might have just sat back and allowed Seoul back into it, but they pushed for the second.
Yeah, and they looked good. They looked much better doing it. Todd Wild pointed this out during the match, but when you watch the highlight of that first goal of theirs, they're just swarming forward, and there's just so many people. Seoul's defense was overwhelmed, and Steve, like you said, they've been overwhelmed all season long. but I mean, Busan, good on them. They took advantage of that and they went and did the thing. So yeah, final B. I mean, we've finally got a title race again, second year in a row, which is great. But I mean, final B, man, every match, every weekend is just really entertaining right now. But we've got a few comments coming in right now. We'll try to get to those in the mailbag. I see Clint, the 94th minute, may have noticed that I don't like Park Ji-young on corner kicks because, call me crazy, I'm not that into hitting the first man every single time. Why is Park Ji-young even on the field? Never mind taking your corner.
I think you could have said that sentence and removed the words at corner kicks, and it probably still apply.
Oh yeah. All right. We're gonna take a break and then we'll come back and we're gonna talk about the national team. We'll be right back.
FNR is a revolutionary football-dedicated digital platform, the first of its kind in Australia. It provides a 24/7 live online radio platform experience, podcast hub, and acts as a content provider for TV, radio, and digital. Having reached millions of listeners and football fans since launching, FNR is accessible worldwide via its website or app, providing a platform to discuss, debate, and celebrate the world game. We are your voice of football, FNR Football Nation Radio.
Welcome back to the K-League United podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Walters, joined by Steve Price.
Yeah.
And Pete Hampshire.
Hello, boys.
All right, gents, this is the reason you're here. Thank you. I don't know.
That sounded so creepy. Hello, boys.
I just thought of the Animaniacs with Hello Nurse on that one. Showing my age there as well. Anyway, the reason that you guys are here is not for creepy references from Pete, although we appreciate them in this very public sphere. We're talking about Team Bento versus Team Kim Hak-bum, a very 2020 national team friendly with the senior national team playing the youth national team, in this case, the Olympic national team, because the Olympics also didn't happen this year, and hopefully will happen next year. We'll see what happens there. But anyway, these teams are going to be playing each other twice. The first of which will be Friday, October 9th. That's this Friday. And the second one will be Monday, October 12th. Both are 8 p.m. kickoffs, both happening at Goyang Stadium. And Steve, I believe you're going to be going to these games?
Yeah, for my sins, I'm supposed to be going to both of them all the way up in Goyang. So hopefully they're entertaining.
Yeah, see if you can get
the refreshments.
That's a very good point. Just bring those in with you and you'll be fine. But, well, that's not necessarily surprising that there won't be refreshments, but there are plenty of surprises on Team Bento. So, Steve, I'll stick with you here. What's the biggest surprise in this roster? And I'm not going to go through the whole roster here. We have something. Yeah, I'm not listing every single player on both teams here. We actually have something that's up just tonight. Bronco Balan put up a breakdown of the two squads on KLeagueUnited.com, so you can go check that out. But of the players listed for Team Bento, the senior national team, Steve, who surprised you the most? Which name?
Yeah, I should have checked out that before I went on here. So this match is like, they can't pick any of the international players, any of the overseas players, and that's pretty much almost all of the national team when you start considering the players in China and Japan as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is already very much a B national team. And in that situation, normally you'd want to pick kind of the up-and-coming players like the under-23s to see what you've got coming up over the next few years and the potential players. But because they're playing against the Olympic team, Bento has only been allowed to pick three players from the under-23s, so that the under-23 side isn't completely decimated or anything like that.
Right.
I think from what I've heard, Bento wasn't extremely happy about that, but that's how it goes. And so that's why, for me, the biggest surprise was that he picked Busan's Lee Dong-jun, because from what I heard, it's like, I mean, Korea's got so many good attacking players overseas. I don't have to list them all. But you can see like pretty much their entire attacking lineup.
Yeah.
First choice attacking lineup isn't here already because they're all overseas. But they're a little bit short on defenders from overseas, and there's not that many top defenders. So for me, it seemed like you'd want to maybe use that extra under 23 slot to find another defender. I mean, they're trying Wondu Day from Ulsan, of course. I think he's actually going to be the kind of standout player, the guy to watch, because he's so highly rated, and he's one of those three that Bento's picked. So I think he really wants to watch him and see how he does and whether he can make up the full-time step to the national side. But yeah, I thought he would have picked another defender in one of those under 23 picks. So that's why I'd say Lee Dong-kyung already, he's played for the national team, so he's already kind of in Bento's plans. But I thought maybe he would have picked somebody else instead of Lee Dong-kyung. So
yeah,
that was a surprise for me.
Okay. And Pete, who are you saying is your surprise pick here?
Yeah, just going off the back of Steve there, you'd think Jung Tae-uk of Daegu would be perfect to like bed in as a centre back in the full team, national team. My surprise pick would be Lee Chung-young. I know, obviously, we've got that talent in Europe, etc., that can't play in this game. But with Lee Chung-young, I don't want to sound too harsh, but what's the point of him playing in it? Because he's not going to play in any tournaments in the future, so he's kind of just filling a gap.
Right.
Yeah.
And he might play in some of the qualifying
games. You think? With all that talent, Hwang Hee-chan, Son Heung-min, Lee Kang-in?
Yeah, I mean, not as a starter, but you'd still have him on the bench with all that experience. If you're suddenly struggling in a game, maybe he's the guy you want to bring on, or if you need to kind of settle the team down a bit, maybe he's the guy you want to bring on. So, I mean, I can see why he's picked, even though he's probably not going to be around in the national team setup when we get to the next major tournaments.
Yeah, I think if this is a normal friendly, he's probably not there. But for me, one of the surprises was an omission, and that's Han Kyo-won is not on this team. And if we're going to include players like Lee Chung-young, who's a very known quantity at this point, and like you said, Pete, I think that's a very crowded position that he's filling. I mean, the talent's obviously there. There's no doubt about that, but I don't think he's a massive part of the future. I don't know that Han Kyo-won would be, but Han Kyo-won's only 30 years old. So, I mean, he could be a part of the squad moving forward. He has a little bit of national team experience, and he's the joint highest Korean goal scorer in K1 with 10 goals this year. He's looked fantastic for Jeonbuk. If not now, if not in this kind of a setup where you're essentially just having a friendly, why not get him in there? And I guess this is all going to be made moot because Jung Woo-yeol's in the comments saying that Han Kyo-won is injured. So I've had that question answered.
Yeah, I was actually going to use my my surprise for mentioning some of the players who aren't here. There's quite a few which didn't make the team. There's like Kim Bo-kyung, Moon Son-min, Kim Sang-dae. None of them made the team, which, as long as they're not injured or suspended, can you be suspended for this? I don't think you can. Then they're kind of a little bit of a surprise because
I forgot all about Moon Son-min. I definitely have him in my team. He's just so different to the rest of the wingers. It's just such a different option.
And if he was good enough to include in the World Cup squad, then certainly you'd want to see what he's got to offer here.
Yeah,
there are only two forwards on Team Bento. There are only two forwards there.
I guess I named those three because they were all in the East Asian Cup team. So maybe Bento didn't like what he saw when he was with them then.
Fair enough. All right, quickly, because we're, surprise, we're running a little bit long in this segment. But Steve, I'll stick with you. What are your expectations for this match for Team Bento? What are you expecting to see from this half or this side of the Korean national team, however you want to phrase it?
Yeah, so I mean, because they haven't played for like a year. And I think from what I've heard, the next friendly, they're trying to arrange one perhaps in Europe so he can get to see all of the overseas players a bit. But I mean, I don't know whether they'll manage that or not yet because it's still maybe not. But it's kind of to for him to give him a chance to see some of the players because he's had quite same players most squads, and he doesn't introduce loads of players at once. He'll introduce one or two each time. So we can keep that core of the squad and then see how those additions kind of affect it. So now he's got a lot of players. I mean, a lot of them he also saw during the East Asian Cup. So he's kind of getting to see some of the other options that he hasn't seen in training, like face-to-face, and hasn't seen how they react to his training and his instructions or anything like that. So he's going to get to do all of that. I think the match itself, as well as the match itself, you've got the training and being with the squad for a week, and I think that's probably more important than actually what happens on the pitch. In some respect for Paolo Bento.
Yeah, especially this season. So, Pete, expectations for Team Bento?
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk before this match about how Ulsan Hyundai have had more players chosen than Jeonbuk Hyundai with the title race coming to a head. And I've chosen Kim In-sung, the winger from Ulsan. I think he'll turn out to be the star man. Like, in these kind of friendlies, there's always someone that pushes their way forward in the manager's mind. And I think Kim In-sung will do that for Bento this weekend.
Yeah, I think those key battles, that's my expectation for this one going into it, is just kind of sorting out what's going on in the midfield, it seems, because again, there are only 2 strikers on this squad. So kind of figuring out who you want in there, which again, I think is odd that Lee Chung-young is in there. So we'll see. We'll see. That's what it is for me. But quickly, because again, we've got to get to Team Kim Hak-bum, which I think is, I think that's the interesting team here because he can actually pick most of his side. But really quickly, one player to watch. Pete, who you got an eye on?
Na Sang-ho. He's doing a one-man crusade at Songnam to keep them up. So he's mine. All
right. Steve, who are you keeping an eye on?
I'm keeping my eye on Won-do Jae because I think Korean, they need some extra things at the back. And I think he's the guy to perhaps be the future for the national team at the back.
Yeah, he's been outstanding this year in the league, already an MVP of a youth tournament. So yeah, I think he'll be a fun one to watch. I have my eye on the midfield as well. I'm looking at Han Sung-gyu, another youth player. I think he's been Seoul's best player this season, and I'm really curious to see if he can do it. I would say at this level, it's hard to say that at this point with this weird setup here. You can't, I mean, technically it's the international level, but I'm just curious to see how he does in a different setup with different players around him, and if he can transition that over. I mean, obviously he was class with Ulsan when he was there. Jeonbuk didn't really give him too much of a shot, and he's been fantastic for Seoul. He's been maybe the reason to watch FC Seoul this year. So after going to as many games of theirs as I have this year, I have to pick him as the player to watch because he's the reason I keep going back there. So he's the one that I'll be keeping an eye on Team Bento anyway. But we're going to take a quick break and we're going to come back and we're going to talk about the team that is actually pretty much the team as you would expect it. And that's Team Kim Hak-bum, which we'll talk about right after a quick break.
Fans, we want to hear from you. You're encouraged to email KLU at info@kleagueunited.com or tweet at KLeagueUnited with any questions, comments or reactions. Or follow us on Facebook to ask directly during one of our live shows.
Welcome back to the K-League United podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Walters, joined this week by Pete Hampshire.
Hello.
And Steve Price.
Hey, how's it going?
And gentlemen, this week we are talking Korea versus Korea, but it's not North Korea versus South Korea. It is South Korea versus South Korea as the senior national team take on the youth national team. And now we're talking about Team Kim Hak-bum. I guess we could have just called it the Olympic team or something, but whatever. I like the man. Let's call it after. Let's call it Team Kim Hak-bum because that's what it is. And let's just do the same thing we did with the last segment. Let's talk surprises here. And I think this was a little bit more difficult in this one because, again, he has most of the players that you would expect him to pick at his disposal. So, Steve, who was your surprise or maybe omission?
I was going to say, I mean, there aren't really any surprises because he basically picked the team that won gold in Thailand to qualify for the Olympics. And there's a few players he couldn't pick because guys like Jung Young, for example, he's overseas. We shouldn't forget that the under 23 side also has some overseas players who weren't available because of that. And so yeah, he basically picked that team. And then the guys who weren't in Thailand, you've got guys like Son Min-gyu. So he's not surprised, is he? He's had a great season. Can hardly call him a surprise. Guys like Lee Kwang-young in goal. I mean, he was outstanding in the Under-20 World Cup. So, I mean, to me, there's no surprises at all in this team.
In the team, are there any omissions that surprised you?
Again, I think if he had the choice, the only guys who aren't there are guys that got called up by Bento.
Right.
So I guess maybe that means perhaps Jong Tae-wook is a bit of a surprise because he wasn't. I mean, apart from that, yeah, it's pretty much what you'd expect.
Fair enough. Pete?
Yeah, I don't know if it's how the KFA put their graphic on Twitter, but because some of the forwards they put on, like Kim Dae-won, Sung-min Kyu, they could have easily labelled them as midfielders instead of forwards.
Yeah.
But my surprise was just how much stronger the forwards look for Kim Hak-bum's side compared to Bento's side. Obviously, that's got a caveat of lots of the foreign based players aren't available to play, but it just looks fantastic. The front six that Kim Hak-bum's got to play with: Kim Dae-won, Sung-min Kyu, Won-san, Oh Se-hoon, Cho Kyu-sung, and Cho Young-uk. I mean, that's not a bad group to have coming through as your youngsters, is it?
Yeah, doesn't
pretty
suck.
good.
Yeah, and I think the one name in there, and this is my surprise, the one name in there that a little bit surprised is Cho Young-uk. And again, I've seen a lot of FC Seoul this year. I really like Cho Young-uk, but he's got 2 goals this year, and a team that really need him still. The season's not done. They need him to step up and be more of an attacking threat, and we've seen it in bursts. Again, that first touch that he has in the super match in Suwon over the summer, not this past one obviously, but that first touch that he has to open it up, give himself some space, and then hit it first time, the awareness, the ability to do it, it's there. It's just we're not seeing it consistently. And to me, just 2 goals, 21 years of age, this is his 3rd season with the club. A little surprising to see him in there. I mean, for me, I personally think that it's time for him to go out on loan somewhere. I think a change of scenery might be good for him. And maybe that's what this is just kind of getting in with the national team and seeing if that can be a bit of a spark. But I was a little surprised to see him included in there.
Yeah, sometimes that happens with kind of young players if they're in a struggling team and they're expected to be the guy who lifts the team up. And it can be very hard for them to do that at that age. So perhaps that's something to do with his performances for Seoul. Of course, he played so well in the Under-20 World Cup. And I think looking at that and the performances there is probably why he got the call-up. Yeah,
I think one name that's not here that I think is a little bit surprising, it's not on either team, is Kang Hyun-moo, somebody that we've talked about before, a goalkeeper that could stand to get that military exemption. And it's a little surprising he's not with the Olympic squad now. I mean, I think he's a known quantity. You don't necessarily need him here. But in a game, if you can call it that, where you've got 6 goalkeepers, I would expect him to be part of that.
Yeah, actually, I would like to change my choice and say he's my surprise.
Okay.
So Kim Hak-bum's seen what he can do. He's had him around the team when he was selecting his squad for the Asian Games. Of course, we had Song Bum-gon was the second choice goalkeeper in that, with Cho Hyun-woo as one of the overage players. And at that time, he said the reason he chose Song over Kang was because Kang was slightly older. And so he wanted to give the younger players a try. But I don't know, maybe it's kind of giving some kind of excuse, and maybe he doesn't feel that Kang suits him or something. But yeah, I thought he was a bit of a surprise that he wasn't in this side, especially as Song Bum-gon already has military exemption.
Exactly what I was going to say. Song Bum-gon's fantastic, arguably the best goalkeeper in the league when he's on. So I mean, there's no questioning his quality, but he's already won with the youth teams. Again, like you said, more importantly, when it comes to the Olympics, as far as I think a lot of these players are concerned, he's already military exempt. So get Kang Hyun-woo in there and just get him with these players, get his backline used to hearing from him. So to me, that's a surprise as well. But that kind of leads into the expectations. And I think this is kind of a tricky one here. And Steve, I'll stick with you on this. What are you expecting from this team, or what are the expectations on this team going into these matches?
Well, if you think back to when they were in Thailand, and they kind of started slow in that tournament, as teams often do, and kind of only just beat China with a last-minute goal in their first game. But then, as the tournament, they kind of really grew into it. And when they were playing Australia in the semi-finals, they were absolutely fantastic and just playing like the most wonderful football. And so, because all the players are pretty much the same, it's going to be interesting to see if they can kind of repeat that performance and play that really kind of nice football that we saw from them in the latter stages of that tournament.
Yeah, it was a very enjoyable watch. Pete, what are you expecting out of this team?
My expectation is how good the wingers will be. I've got to mention On Sang down at Gwangju is the only Gwangju player that's made it into both squads somehow. No, I'm only jesting. But
Get Felipe naturalized.
He's got that rapid pace that could cause Bento's team's problems, especially if Lee Ju-young gets given some game time in one of these two games. If you get On Sang running at him again, just like he did, I think it was him against On Sang in the league game between Jeonbuk and Gwangju, then he can cause trouble. And then on the other side, you've got Song-min Kyu, who's bagged 10 goals as a 21-year-old, however old he is. So my expectations are that Kim Hak-bum's side will be really strong on the wings.
Yeah, I think, and that leads in perfectly to what my expectation is for them in this, and it's win. Honestly, when you look at these two teams, I think the youth team is better. Like, I don't think it's really even that close, for being honest. I just think that they're just really stacked, especially up top, like you were saying, Pete. I mean, I expect them to win against this version of the senior national team because, like you say, Pete, I think, or like you were saying, Steve, a lot of the players that Bento depends on and relies on time and again, they're in Europe. They're not here right now. So this is kind of like a C team for him to try to choose from. And so, I mean, again, for me, I really think the goal should be to win. And again, for these youth players that are getting ready to go into the Olympics, I think it means more for them to win because this is the group that's going to go. Team Bento is show the coach what you've got, sure. But Team Kim Hak-bum,
they've got to grab that place, haven't they?
Exactly.
Make sure they're on that plane to Tokyo.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's a small squad to Tokyo as well. But I think, I don't know, I disagree slightly because I think the centre of the park is so much stronger for Bento's side. If you're going to have Wondu J sitting deep and then Son Jun-ho, I mean, they're going to just control the ball and snap at your heels. Especially
if it's in the middle of the pitch at all. Just go down those lanes, man. That's all I'm saying. All right, let's really quickly, because we got to get into the mailbag here, and we just had another question that came in from the 94th minute. So we'll start the mailbag, as always, with that one. And one other thing in the comments here, Matthew Ben's pointing out one really good thing about Kang Hyun-moo. He's got to rein it in a little bit. The penalty shootout that we saw him in, you cannot high step for 15 yards and miss a penalty, my son. Can't do it. Don't do that. So maybe there's more going on off the pitch that's keeping him out of this team. I don't know, but he is quality, and I'm a little surprised he's not there. But he's not there, so he's not one to watch. So Pete, I'll stick with you here. Who is your one player to watch in this squad?
Yeah, Meng Sung-un. I keep getting told about him at Anyang, and obviously I've abandoned the K-League too, seeing as I'm a Gwangju writer. Cool. But a couple of different people have suggested that Gwangju should have been looking to sign him, and I haven't seen him play that much. So just from a personal perspective, I'm looking forward to watching him.
Yeah, he's one of the few bright spots for the Violets this year. Steve, who are you keeping an eye on?
Keeping an eye on Oh Se-hoon again, because for the national team in those age groups, it's been so impressive, and I think if he can keep doing that, who knows what's going to happen with him. He's already doing his military service. I mean, he could go a long way.
Yeah, I think, again, he's incredibly intelligent getting his time at Sangju Sangmu done. I put that in quotes early because that's a really good team that he's involved in, and his military service will be done as he's improving as a player. The player that I'm keeping an eye on, we've mentioned him quite a bit, Song-min Kyu. He's fantastic for Pohang, joint top Korean scorer in the league right now. And I want to see what he does at the national team level. This is his first time with the national team. So how does he gel with these players? How does he fit into this squad? And can he get on that plane to Tokyo whenever it takes off, whenever the Olympics happen? Is he going to be a part of this squad? So to me, I I do think they should win, and I think he should be involved in that. So I think, I mean, all of us have picked some, well, Ming Sung maybe not an attacking talent, but again, this team has the potential to be a lot of fun to watch. So for you, it's going to be a cold night out there, Steve. So I hope that they are fun to watch.
Cold night, a long way away, long journey as well.
Yeah,
it's turned in Korea now, isn't it? The days are drawing in. It's getting colder.
It just hit last night. But anyway, we did have a couple of questions come in while we've been streaming here, and then we had a couple that came in beforehand. So we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll hop into the Ulji Luis mailbag. We'll be right back.
Ulji Lewis is your neighborhood British bar and cafe located in the Old Jiro district of Seoul. Decorated in old English antiques and furniture for a true homely feel, you can enjoy homemade scones, cakes and afternoon tea during the day, and traditional British favourites like beef stew, English ale, and a fine selection of wines at night. Available for private parties or simply an evening out, Ulji Lewis is sure to become your favourite neighbourhood pub. Be sure to mention K-League United at the bar during your visit and you'll get 10% off your bill.
Welcome back to the K-League United podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Walters, joined by Steve Price.
Yeah.
And Pete Hampshire.
Hi, mate. I'm just drooling over that cheese board that was on the screen there. Fantastic.
Went to Ulji Luis somewhat recently. I, as somebody that's lactose intolerant and still participated in that cheese board, I can both recommend and really not recommend it. It's great at the time. Anyway, we are into the Ulji Luis mailbag, and we start, as always, with a question from the 94th minute. And this is an interesting one. He's asking if Bento's team gets hammered in these two games, so if it's 4, 5, 6 goals, would that put his managerial position into question?
I'm going to say probably not, because he wants to pick more of the players in Kim Hak-bum's side, so he knows that it's a really good side. He knows these players are great. I want to pick them, and I can't.
Yeah,
but then on the flip side of that is cherry picked a couple of them, so he should be weakening that side.
Only 3,
right?
Only, yeah. He wanted more. He wanted them all. He wanted to sort side.
Probably should. All right. Yeah, I think we all agree there. All right, let's move on to one from Matthew Binns that came in beforehand. And he said, well, he's not against the idea of this fixture, given the international travel restrictions and the need for the U23 squad to maintain cohesion. Is the second fixture really necessary? So again, they are playing each other twice. So he's asking, is it necessary to have 2 of these things?
Nah.
From a watching the game point of view, probably not. But from a manager's point of view, otherwise you're going to play every guy for like 45 minutes. You can't really see what they do.
Sure.
By playing 2 games, you can give everybody a full 90, and at least you get to see the players a bit more on the pitch. So from that point of view, I think it does have some use.
Yeah. Pete, you immediately said no.
I'm more from the fans' perspective, I guess. That does make sense what Steve said, but one game on Saturday, a nice 3:00 kickoff on Saturday afternoon.
Ooh, yeah.
More people would enjoy just a one-off. But like you said, they're both huge squads, aren't they? And it's only 2 games. So I guess there is some logic to it.
I mean, for me, you might as well, you throw out one starting 11 on Friday and a completely different one on Monday. And or maybe just like switch up a few pairings here and there and see how it goes. But yeah, I mean, it's a busy schedule. It's a congested schedule. But then again, these national team managers, they have not been able to get their squads hardly at all. So yeah, I can see both sides of it. All right, we move on to Osri Furman here, who is asking, we're back to the league here. He's asking, is the win over Sangju that urgent spark needed for Ulsan's title charge?
Yeah, especially with Jeonbuk slipping up on the day after. I mean, like we said before last weekend, that it was huge that Ulsan played on the Friday night and Jeonbuk played on the Saturday night, because that put extra pressure on Jose's side. And I think Jeonbuk were unlucky in that. But anyway, Ulsan, it will give them that boost. We always say they'll bottle it, but I don't think they will this year.
I hope you're right, and I would love to be proved wrong. Steve, what do you think? Is this what they needed?
Well, they need the 3 points. It kind of opens that gap up, and it puts pressure because if they get a result and then John Book slip up, then maybe they don't need to play John Book and have that massive kind of 6-pointer when it comes down to it.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, it certainly doesn't hurt. And again, I think Sangju's a really quality side. I think Sangju might finally be done mentally this year, though. They did a lot. They finished in the top half. They know they're getting relegated. Ton of players left this summer, so I think they're just kind of but we'll see.
When those players leave, it always seems to fall apart for them a bit.
Yeah, that really needs to be looked at. All right, let's move on to our final couple of questions here, and I'll combine these. These are from Dejan Citizen, FC Brazil. And the first one is, the first part of the question is actually missing. I think it's which is more likely to happen? Ulsan losing the title to Jeonbuk or Jeju losing the title to Suwon? Which one is more likely to happen?
You've got to say Ulsan losing the title to Jeonbuk, haven't you? Just from the past record.
Yeah,
I think Jeju have too much strength in depth in the K2. Yeah, you've got to go for the Ulsan.
Yeah, I think also because I don't know if Jeju's going to lose again. Like Jeju just look really, really good, and this is kind of what we expected from them based on the ridiculous squad that they built. I mean, they've got depth galore, they've got talent galore, and I think having watched a lot of them and watched a lot of Suwon, with Jeju, you just go into the match and you expect them to win, and they do. And with Suwon, they've been doing it ugly, and good on them. I mean, they're right there. I wouldn't be shocked if Suwon won the K2 title and got promoted automatically, but they don't look as convincing as Jeju do right now. So for me, you combine that with the fact that Kim Do-hoon can't beat Jeonbuk, and yeah, I think that's where we are with this.
From a K-League United perspective, it would be fantastic if it was a 6-pointer between Ulsan and Jeonbuk on the penultimate day. That would be brilliant for us. Could
we then rename this the Jose Moraes bunker?
No, thank you. I'll be leaving the bunker immediately.
Fair enough. All right, that is it for the mailbag this week. A brief mailbag because somebody, I'm not going to name names, me, forgot to put out the mailbag call until earlier today. So if you'd like to get involved with that, usually we'll be a little bit more on it. But if you want to email us, you can do so, info@kleagueunited.com. All right, but if you'd like to be more involved with the site and what we're doing, then you can get involved on Patreon. And a big thanks to our latest patron, Joey, aka the Baseball Brit, has just signed up as a patron. And he, along with many others, are getting a lot of exclusive editorial pieces. Paul Neat's Statterday. Paul is just all in on the puns right now, and I love it. Love it. If you're not reading his news roundup weekly or listening to it, get on that, because the puns, they're thick and fast.
He likes a good pun, doesn't he?
That man is obsessed. And starting this week, we've moved the national roundup, the news roundup, from the actual podcast to being a Patreon exclusive earlier in the week. We will still have the weekend preview coming out later this weekend that Paul hosts. But that, for now, earlier in the week, is a Patreon exclusive, so you can listen to that there. The K-League 1 power rankings for September are already up. The K2 power rankings are coming this week. Wanted to stagger those out a little bit. And we'll also have full player interviews and a couple of podcast extras. Speaking of Paul, he's got some stuff lined up for next week on this note, so some fun stuff there. Random boxes will be sent out. I don't care what the post office says. We're going to be sending those. Right. Even if it's on a boat that takes 2 months, we're going to get these things to you folks. So
right. 2 months could be optimistic.
It'll happen eventually, we hope, but that's going to happen. So if you want to get involved in all this madness, tiers start as low as $1, or you can get involved with $3 and the $5 tiers as well. And last but not least, if you'd like to listen to us live and you're not doing so now, you can do so every Thursday on Football Nation Radio down in Australia. And if you subscribe to this podcast, wherever you download your podcast, and leave us a review, 5 stars preferred, then you'll be entered into this month's K-League kit giveaway, which is a 2019 Kim Min-woo Sangju Sangmu away kit. It's lovely. Nice, classy white one. Get that in there.
Is that just for people who give 5 stars?
That's only if you leave a 4.5, we're not. Well, I mean, if you leave a 1 star, I guess you're still in the running. But please don't. Yeah, we'll just I'm not going to throw any other teams under the bus. But yeah, 1-star review. You get what's the name of the team? Oh, Motley Crue was the 5-a-side team that I was a part of. We'll send you that kit. It's actually not that bad. But anyway, if you'd like to get involved, get on Patreon.
Got plenty of Barnsley shirts knocking around if anyone's keen.
On that note, we're out of here. Go Barnsley, I guess. I don't know what you guys say. Up the Reds or what? Okay, bye.
You Reds. Bye.
정정 공격 폭격기 김신